thanks a lot for coming in.
Good morning, happy to be here.
Something about this community appeals to you?
This is a wonderful place to live.
For Kelowna Now, this is Camp Mulgat. And we're joined by Al Janusas, the organizer of the Walk the Beach Kelowna. We saw your event, lots of people came out, and lots of attention on what you did.
I was really pleased, as was Brenda Bachman, the person who came up with the idea for this, for Walk the Beach Kelowna. It was a cool, cloudy day last Sunday, and there was a lot of local events that weren't happening last year that were happening this past weekend, and we had a really good turnout. I'm very pleased with that. Okay,
so obviously people who see this public access to the lakeshore in front of people's homes as an issue, and those would be a lot of people on your walk, but do you feel that the issue is sort of getting any broader attention? To those people who might not have been a part of the walk, do you have any sense that the general public is with you on this?
I think that the amount of awareness, which was our aim, we're aiming to raise awareness about where you can and can't walk along the lakeshore here in Kelowna, and surprisingly a lot of property owners, waterfront property owners, like this. I thought I'd get nothing but resistance from them.
Wait a minute, the people who you think need to start better accommodating people walking by are actually agreeing with what you're saying. Why?
Not all of them, but some of them, and some of them are opposed to it.
Right.
I think some of the reasons that people who live on the lakeshore are actually in favor of more accessibility to our waterfront is that they realize that the more eyes and ears that you have on an area, the less illegal and antisocial behavior you get happening in those locations.
So what might be seen as a security negative could actually be in some ways a positive.
Absolutely. The city has proven this with their experiment with a dog beach at the Lake Avenue beach access, and there's a lot more public presence there now. So a lot of the things that the city didn't like that were happening there in the past have really been reduced, the occurrences have been reduced by a lot by having a lot more of the public there.
Now, the City of Kelowna put out a little position paper on the topic since you did your walk, so clearly you got the attention of the city.
I was happy to see that we got the attention of the mayor and the council. And I think what I know what they were responding to is prior to the walk, we released 6 relatively easily achievable goals that would increase the public accessibility to Kelowna's waterfront. And I think that full accessibility to our waterfront might happen long after you and I are in a grave somewhere. Yeah. But these are short-term realizable goals that should be easily accomplished, reasonably easily accomplished in as little as the next term in office, in the next 4 years.
Now, one portion of what the city put out on this topic, made the comment that this is an area of provincial responsibility, which on some levels it is, but you would argue that there are ways that the city can take this on their own.
Absolutely. The province, in essence, owns the foreshore, the lake water, and the lake bottom. The city and the city residents are on the other side of that boundary line, which is often referred to as the high water mark. And one of the main things that PLANKelowna would like to do, would like to see done, is the city require small signs to be required on that boundary line in between public and private property, so that people who are walking along the foreshore, like they're allowed to do, don't accidentally trespass onto private property. At this point, we have to rely on the people who own waterfront property, and we have to rely on them for the location of that boundary line. Right. And oftentimes it's not clear where it is. Yeah. I'd like to see that cleared up.
Okay, and you guys, I saw a video on your Facebook page that kind of shows the shoreline, and as you sort of look along there, you can see places where there are concrete structures or a lawn that just goes right out to maybe a small retaining wall, and there is no foreshore. So I think you've looked at other cities. Are there solutions to sort of regaining a foreshore where there is none?
Absolutely. In many parts of our shoreline in between the bridge and Mission Creek, we do have pretty good access. We have some fantastic, beautiful parks and beaches currently. What PLANKelowna would like to see is links made in between those existing facilities, because people don't like walking around in circles. All over the world, people like to walk on beaches. And if we linked the existing beaches and parks that we have on our waterfront, that would make for a much better system. And the way that they could do that is, one of the ways that they can do that is, as waterfront properties come up for sale, the city can buy these, what tend to be long, narrow properties, sever off a walkway along the shoreline of whatever width they choose, say 50 feet. And then the rest of the property can be resold.
Right.
And in that way, the city gets the full legal use of a strip of land along the lake, and they can eliminate the docks that are severe hindrances to people using the foreshore. And they can cut the costs a lot by reselling the road side of those properties.
Right, so ultimately, what you would envision then is like a boardwalk that would be, well, I guess it could be a beach in places and then a boardwalk where necessary, but a continuous place to walk.
Absolutely. I think that most of the residents of Kelowna, and there's about 130,000 and counting of us, Kelowna is one of the fastest growing cities in Canada, and the city has targets for the amount of parks per person, that amount of area of parks per person that are required. They're way behind, way behind on where on their own self-imposed parameters.
Right, and I was reading that they're like $500 million short of the funding they need to even catch up.
Well, one of the reasons, there are many reasons for that, the city has failed to collect enough money, or they've collected less money than they've committed to spend. And one example of the areas where they could have had a lot more money in the city treasury is they chose, over the last 4 years of their term, or nearly 4 years of their mayoral term, the city council has chosen to not charge real estate developers for building parks. We get money off of them for roads and sewers and sidewalks and things like that, and we get money to buy the land for parks, but the city has not required them to pay for the building of parks like is required in Vancouver and most other big cities in Canada.
So if they would change their ways there, they'd have more alternatives to improve things like
absolutely. They have far too few parks in Kelowna, and they could drastically increase the number of them if they just charge the developers this charge that's a standard charge across Canada.
So let's imagine the perfect future then now. The city gets its act together in terms of gathering the money needed to get there. You get lots of public support for this idea, and then we would have a future where a lakefront property owner looks out and there's people using, whether it's a boardwalk or a stretch of beach between them and the lake. Do you think ultimately that would even make those lakefront properties better?
Absolutely. The current negative way of looking at it is, oh, I don't want those members of the public, God forbid, on my beach. Well, for one thing, it's not their beach. It's public property. The other thing is that, and there's actually been a handful of lakefront property owners that have talked to me and said, I would love for there to be a system of trails and or boardwalks.
So they could walk out their door and go right or left?
Absolutely. You could either go downtown or you could head to the Mission Creek Greenway and follow that. That's another beautiful trail.
So lakefront property owners would be in the best situated position to enjoy such a resource if it was there.
I would certainly choose, if I owned on the waterfront, that's certainly what I would choose.
Right. So it gets less exclusive, which has its own sort of attractiveness to it, but
I think people who want exclusive access to the lake have their choice of thousands of locations within British Columbia, and even hundreds of locations in southern BC, in the interior. Kelowna is a big city, and it's getting to be a much bigger city faster than most other places in Canada. We have to open up our waterfront here.
Right.
It's no longer the exclusive preserve of the wealthy to use for a few weeks out of the year, and prevent the rest of us from using it for that time period and for the rest of the year when they aren't even using their waterfront properties.
Are you optimistic that you'll see some of your goals in your lifetime realized?
Well, these 6 goals that we presented, and we've issued rebuttals to the city's reaction, and they're viewable on our Facebook page, which is PLANKelowna. And if people want to go see our outlook on this, we would welcome them to go there and
Right.
make comments, because we can learn from the public, and I think our city mayor and council can learn from the public as well.
Terrific. Well, thanks for telling us about it. Thanks for coming in.
Very nice speaking with you.
Al Janusas, and thank you for watching Kelowna Now.